Hey, hi all, welcome to Script QA. So next control flow statement is the for loop. Okay, so previously we have seen two control flow statement, that is the if else and switch case, right? So next control flow statement is the for loop, right? So when we should use the for loop? Okay, so based on your condition, okay, if you want to run the statement multiple times, okay, so there are some statement you want to run those statement multiple times. In that case you should use the loop, any loop. Okay, not specifically for loop, but if you are having requirement, okay, you want to run certain statement again and again and again, in that case you are going to use the for loop. Okay, so let's consider one example. Okay, so for example I want to print hello message. Okay, but I want to print this hello message 1,000 times. Okay, so in that case, am I going to write the hello system dot out dot println 1,000 time? No. Okay, so this is not good way, right? So instead of that, what I will do, I will use the for loop. Okay, and I will add that particular statement inside the loop so that it will get executed 1,000 times and it will print the message hello 1,000 times. Right. So what is the syntax for the for loop? Okay, so in for loop you have to provide the, you have to mention first of all for. Okay, then bracket open, then first statement you have to provide the initialization. Okay, so what is mean by initialization? Initialization means you have to assign the value to the some variable, so from where your for loop should start, that value you have to provide here. Okay, so for example, let's say I want to start my for loop, let's say from the zero number, right? So I will say I is equal to 0. Okay, so let's say I want to start my for loop from the 1. Alright, so I will say I is equal to 1. Okay, so next statement that you have to provide is the condition. This is very important. Okay, so next statement that you have to provide is the condition. Okay, so what condition you have to provide? Depending on your requirement, you have to provide the condition, and that condition should be written true or false. Okay, so for example, what I will do, I will say if I want to print the number, right, so 1 to 100, so I will give the some condition here, right? So let's say I is less than, sorry, I is less than, let's say, 100, right? So we have seen the operators, right? So in that it's returning true or false, right? So this kind of statement you have to give here depending on your requirement. Okay, so basically here you have to provide the condition which returns the true or false, and lastly you have to provide the increment or decrement. Okay, so let's say I have initialized I to the 1. Okay, so each iteration the value of I should be incremented or decremented. Okay, so it should be changed. Okay, if it is same, then your loop will be get go into the continuous execution state, that is the infinity loop. Okay, so you have to take care of these three statement. Okay, first one is the initialization, second one is the condition, third one is the increment and decrement. Okay, now once you have written this, you have to close the bracket. Okay, then you have to open the curly braces, you have to write some code, and you have to close the curly braces. Okay, so this is how you have to write the for loop. Okay, so now moving one step ahead. Okay, so we can have inner for loops as well. Okay, or we can say the nested for loops as well. Okay, so syntax for the nested for loop. So what is nested for loop? So for loop which is inside the for loop. So if you see, so this is my first for loop. Okay, and this is my second for loop. But here what I'm doing, I'm just having one for loop. Okay, and I haven't closed this for loop. Okay, inside that for loop I'm having another for loop, so this is complete another different for loop. Okay, and then after this for loop close, I'm closing my outer for loop. So this is called as the, so this is called as the inner outer for loop, and this is called as the inner for loop. Okay, so now here, what how it will be get executed? It will be executed. Okay, I is equal to, let's say, 1. Okay, and I'm having condition I less than 10. Okay, and then I maybe I plus plus. So in this case, okay, so what will be happen? So when value of I is equal to 1, okay, so it will go to the inner for loop. It will complete the execution of inner for loop once. That means, okay, so this particular for loop is talking about the j is equal to 1, j less than 5, okay, and same j plus plus I'm having here. Okay, so in that case, what will happen when value of I is equal to 1, then it will be complete the execution of inner for loop. That means from 1 to 5. Okay, so in this case it will be executed 1 to 4. Okay, because I have used the less than operator, not less than or equal to. So maybe I will add here less than or equal to, so it will be 1 to 5. Okay, so now it will go to the outer for loop. It will increase the value of I by 1, that means 2, and then it will be again execute this inner for loop 5 times. Okay, so again it will be get increment the value of I by 3, and it will execute the inner for loop 5 times. Okay, so this is how inner for loop will work. Okay, so we'll quickly jump on Eclipse and we'll see there how it will be work. Okay, so first we have in for loop. So let's say I want to print 1 to 10 number. Okay, so in that case what I will do, I will use one for loop. I'll say for initialization int I is equal to, let's say, 1, I greater than, sorry, I less than or equal to 10, and I plus plus. Okay, and I'll simply write the system dot out dot println, and I'll say print I. Okay, so now it will be printed number 1 to 10. Okay, so if you see, it's printing the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, so this is how we can use the for loop. So here I have done the initialization. So this part is initialization, this is for the condition, and this is for the increment decrement. So we'll quickly see how it is proceeding the output. Okay, so I have added here one debug point. Okay, by simply clicking this line, double clicking, by simply double clicking on this particular line. Okay, and I will say right click, run as, sorry, debug as Java application. Okay, so it's saying like switch to the debugger mode. So I'm saying yes, switch to the debugger mode. So now it's saying like, currently value of I is equal to 1. Okay, it switched to the debugger. Okay, and where I have added the debugger, it just stopped there. Right, so I'm saying like, so here are few buttons. Okay, step in and step over. Okay, so in this case we will do the step over only. Okay, so I will say step over. So currently value of I is equal to 1. Okay, here it's showing the value of I is equal to 1. Okay, now I'll just say step over. It's just incrementing the value of I by 1. Okay, it just go to the for loop. Here it will be check the condition 1 is less than or equal to 10. So condition is true. So in that case it will go to the, it will increase the value of I by 1. Okay, and now value of I is equal to 2, so it should print the 2. Okay, now again it's going to the for loop. Okay, and it will check the condition is 2 is greater than 10. O- okay, it's checking the condition 2 is less than 10. Okay, so 2 is less than or equal to 10, so condition is true. It will go inside the loop. Inside the loop it's just printing the number. Okay, again it will be check the, again it will be go to the for loop. Again it will be check the condition 3 is less than 10. Okay, so 3 is less than 10. Okay, so again it will be execute the 4. So now value of I is 4. Okay, so when I'm saying like step over, right, so it will again check, okay, value of I, that is the 4 is less than 10. Okay, so it continues go to the I is equal to 10. Okay, so it just completed the execution. Okay, and this is how we can debug the Java program, any Java program. Okay, so now this is about the simple for loop. Okay, so I'll just stop the execution. Okay, now what I said about the inner for loop. So for loop which is inside the for loop is called as the inner for loop. Okay, so now let's consider the example. Okay, so I want to print the number like this. When I'm saying 1, it should print the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so when I'm saying 2, okay, so it should print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so similarly it should print for the 3 as well. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 till 10. Okay, for 3 as well, for the 4 as well. Okay, so I want to print the numbers like this. Okay, in this case I have to use the two for loops. Okay, so one to manage this particular 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one to manage this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To manage this, I need one for loop, and to manage this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I need another for loop. Okay, so I will use the same for loop here. Only I will do some little changes. So I will say before after printing the I, okay, do one thing, just print the dash as well. Okay, just print the dash after printing I. Now I will take another for loop. Okay, and this particular for loop is to print these numbers. Okay, so above for loop is to print this 1, 2, 3, 4, these numbers. Okay, now what I will do, I'll say uh, int j is equal to 1, j less than or equal to, let's say, 5, and j plus plus. Okay, curly braces open close, that means I am having another for loop. Okay, so this is the inner for loop, and this particular for loop is called as the outer for loop. Okay, so now here I will say system dot out dot println, and in println I will say print the j. Okay, but after the printing the j, what I will say, I'll say just print some space. Okay, and as well this ln is not required. So if so this ln is for the printing on next line, so I don't want to print this j on next line. Okay, and after this completed, okay, outside this inner for loop, I'll say now do the next line. Okay, so after this execution is completed, I'm saying now go to the next line. Okay, now I will just run this particular program and we'll see we're getting desired output or not. Okay, so it is little bit weird. Okay, so it's saying 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's going to the next line, because of that it's saying like this. Okay, so what we will do, we'll remove this ln as well. Okay, and now we'll execute. Okay, now it's getting the output. Okay, for the 1 it's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 it's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 it's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 it's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now that means you are getting the correct output. But how this is internally working? Okay, so this is the outer for loop, this is the inner for loop, and how it is printing the number. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just add the debugger here. Okay, so I simply double click on this particular line, so it's added the debugger. Okay, now I'll say right click, run as, sorry, debug as Java application. Okay, so debugger started, and now what I will say, I'll say step over. Okay, so now it is inside the inner for loop, because value of I is equal to 1, so condition is true, so it is inside the inner for loop. So here it will print the I and dash. Okay, So it is printing I and dash. Okay, now it's going to the inner for loop. Okay, so in inner for loop, value of j is equal to 1, and we are expecting j should be the less than 5. So currently condition is true, so it will go inside the inner for loop as well. Okay, where we will print the j and space. Okay, so it will print the j and space. So it's printing the value of j is equal to 1, and after that some space it will be print. Okay, now it will not go to the outer for loop, it will go to the inner for loop. So it will complete all the 5 execution of inner for loop, and then it will go to the outer for loop. Okay, so now if you see, it is going to the inner for loop. It will increase the value of it will check that 1 is less than 5. Okay, so currently 1 is less than 5, so condition is true, so it will print the j. Now value of j is equal to 2, so it will print the 2. Okay, now again it will be go check the 2 is less than 5. Okay, so 2 is less than 5, so condition is true, so it's printing the next statement. Okay, next value of the j, that is the 3. Okay, now value of j is 3, so it will check 3 is less than 5, condition is true, it will increment the value of j by 1. So now value of j is 4, it will print the 4 now, and this keeps going on. Okay, till inner for loop ends. Okay, now value of j is equal to 5. Okay, so now it will be out to the this particular loop. Okay, it will be go to the outside this particular loop, and it will print the space next line. Okay, again it will be increase the value of I by 1. So initial value of I is 1, right? So it will be increment the value of I by 1. Okay, now it will print the I value of I, that is the 2. Okay, now it will go to the check the inner for loop. Now again value of j is equal to, it will be starting fresh execution for the inner for loop. So it will initialize the j is equal to 1. Okay, and it will check j is less than or equal to 5. So currently j is less than, that is 1 is less than 5. Okay, so value is true, so it will go inside the loop, it will complete all the 5 execution of inner for loop. If you see, okay, it will go outside this, and it will again go to the outer for loop. Okay, and this is keeps going on till the your outer for loop finish its execution. So we'll simply execute fastly. Okay, so if you see, it's after finishing inner for loop execution, it just incrementing the value of j, sorry, value of I by 1. And now it just finished the execution after 10. It just finished the execution because outer for loop condition is fail, and it will be outside the outer for loop. Okay, so this is how we can do the inner for loop. Okay, okay, so that's it about this video. Please share, like, and subscribe to our channel. So thank you very much.